I suppose if it did come from a lab leak, that would mean that the people in control of response to the pandemic also caused the pandemic, and also in some cases benefited financially from the pandemic, and that surely wouldn't be right. The only thing that could be worse than that would be to find out that, I don't know, during the pandemic itself, they carried on doing that type of experiment that caused it in the first place, if indeed that did cause it, and that would be unbelievable. Hello there, you 6.3 million awakening wonders. Thanks for joining me on this voyage to truth and freedom, where new alliances must be forged, where new levels of consciousness must be attained, where prejudices and bigotry must be cast aside in pursuit of new friendships, new systems, a new dawn for us all, where we finally confront establishment corruption, media lies, government corruption, and corporate invasion. Turn on that notification bell right now so that you know every single day we make this content for you. Without you, I am nothing. We need you. By God, I need you. If only you knew how much I need you. Now, we talk a lot about that pandemic, don't we? Not because we're obsessed with it, not because we've got a particular perspective on particular medications, but because it provided a lens on how power operates, how media interests, government interests, and corporate interests converge, how there's an appetite to continue to centralize power, surveil the population, vilify dissenting voices, and control us all. Today's story teaches us a great deal about how that went down. In particular, Jon Stewart, who, let's face it, is something of a darling of the liberal establishment left, was widely condemned and criticised for his brilliant Wuhan joke and observation about its likely origins. What surprises me even more than the venom and invective faced by dissenting and critical voices is the astonishing fact that during the pandemic, new evidence suggests that they continued with the very kind of experiments that likely caused the whole thing in the first place. Let's have a look at Jon Stewart.
So the idea was, about the vaccines and other things, that science had truly helped heal a world from a pandemic, probably caused by science.
And let's face it, as a comedian, every time you're doing joke about Wuhan, which I do in my new special, link in the description if you want it, you're aware of the brilliance of the outbreak of chocolate goodness in Hershey, Pennsylvania, as probably the perfect pandemic joke. But the backlash is what's interesting in this instance.
And the backlash was swift, immediate, and quite loud. The part that I don't like about it is the absolutes and the dismissive, like, fuck you, I'm done with you, I will never forgive you. What was stunning to me, I think, was the anger.
Let's remember, the framing for Stewart's joke was, if science caused the pandemic, why would you trust science to resolve the pandemic? And that's a great joke, and I'm sure me and Jon Stewart would disagree with loads of things around the pandemic, as me and any other person would on a variety of subjects. And a significant point that we need to address is that they carried on with experiments of this nature, even knowing that it was possible that the pandemic had been caused by a lab leak. You won't believe this. And this reporting is from the mainstream media. Way back in the midst of the pandemic, when there were new varieties and variants emerging every day, the Delta one, the Omicron one, they were, instead of thinking, this is a pain in the arse, when are we going to be able to go back to our normal lives such as they are, combining them to see what would happen. At what point is there going to be some humility? At what point will the hubris be punctured? At what point will proper safety measures and a consensual agenda for scientific experimentation, other than the pursuit of finance would be what I contest, be achieved? British scientists, lads, you've let us down. I was hoping it was going to be American or Chinese scientists. Damn. Carried out experiments that risked creating more dangerous variants during the pandemic, it has been claimed. In testing led by Imperial College London and supported by the UK Health Security Agency, cells were infected with Delta and Omicron at the same time to see which had a competitive advantage. So you think that scientists are like children. I know what. We'll put Omicron and Delta into one cell and see who wins. Fight, 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 fight. Anton van der Merwe, professor of molecular immunology at the University of Oxford, said, bearing in mind he's a conspiracy theorist, that such experiments risked combining the two variants to produce something more lethal that could have infected scientists or leaked from the laboratory. Don't you worry when your own common sense and gut instincts turn out to be empirical science. Hey, wait a minute, shouldn't they not be doing that? Hey, what if it came from that lab, though, in Wuhan? All those things are just keep being true. Should we agitate Russia into, when they got nuclear weapons? All this stuff's like true and correct. You're right. Don't forget, in the face of all the propaganda, that these people are fucking maniacs. Coronaviruses like SARS-CoV-2 are well known to evolve by exchanging genetic material when two distinct viruses infect the same cell, he said. This makes it much more likely that these strains will recombine and create a more dangerous variant, which could infect those doing the experiments, who could then spread it into the community. Professor van der Merwe said using Delta and Omicron was particularly risky because they were from different lineages and had more differences than those variants closer to the original Wuhan strain. What kind of scientists are doing that? What kind of reckless, risk-taking high rollers are conducting experiments that seem to be fueled primarily by risk and gambling? These are not the qualities I want in clinical scientists. I want them to be like, okay, well, we've got a problem here. This is the best way to pursue it. Not like, okay, Papa needs a new pair of spats. Let's get in there. Come on. I'm not feeling too good, actually. I'm gonna pop down to the wet market, get myself one of those Penhaligon things. I could do with a bite of that right now. Sadly, these people are English. You've let us down. You let the Queen down. In fact, when did she die? Imperial College London defended the experiments which took place in London. Of course they fucking did. Arguing that they were needed to inform the pandemic response. It added they were carried out under high biosafety standards. Oh, thanks very much. Thanks for not just doing it in a skate park or a supermarket or in an old people's home. We did the very best we could. Why don't you mind your own business? A spokesman for the university said, this government-backed research used viruses no more pathogenic than those already circulating within the population and will provide crucial insights that support government decision-making on how to manage the pandemic. And we all know that government decision-making during the pandemic was absolutely perfect, whether that was the parties they continued to hold throughout the pandemic or the way that they admitted in text messages that they were exaggerating the risks in order to frighten us. It was conducted in a biosafety level 3 laboratory. Why do you even need biosafety level 1 and 2? Always try your hardest for it to be safe. Okay, it's Friday, no school uniform. Let's just have fun with it. Biosafety level 1. Whee! Why don't we juggle all those coronaviruses? Let a couple of these mice out. Well, out you go, guys. Only have level 3. Always try your best not to cause a pandemic. In line with strict government regulations. Government regulations at this point don't seem to have that much credibility, do they? I mean, it's likely this thing came from a lab leak. The government responded appallingly and were biased in directions that were ultimately unfavourable. They were dishonest and propagandist throughout it. So we've got science that is interested primarily in profit, a government that's interested in regulating, even if it's unethical and untruthful, and there are literal examples of that. That is not a combination for a loving republic. Since the start of the pandemic, there have been fears that COVID-19 leaked from a laboratory in Wuhan, where researchers were carrying out experiments on bat coronaviruses. By coincidence. Why are we still talking about this? Why are we still talking about Raccoon Dog and trying to blame a perfectly innocent, adorable new pet? Anyway, probably you don't often have viruses leak from labs. It's probably rare, unprecedented, or hardly happens at all. So we've probably all got nothing to worry about. In recent decades, oh yeah, recent ones, smallpox, swine flu, SARS, and anthrax, as well as foot and mouth disease, have escaped through laboratory leaks. That is a terrifying list. Smallpox, I'd hate to get that. Swine flu, ugh. SARS, well, we know where that led. Anthrax, I didn't even know that was a disease, but it was a literal thing terrorists did, as well as foot and mouth disease, which I think of the diseases is the most disgusting one, because who wants a foot in their mouth? Pervert. This week, a report by King's College London warned that laboratories containing dangerous pathogens are increasing. Oh, great news! Well, we've all had a terrible time in the pandemic. Been rough for all of us, whether it's the deterioration in education standards, the threat to small businesses, the lack of trust in institutions, the increase in inequality. We've made some final decisions on that basis as scientists. We are pleased to announce more dangerous pathogens in laboratories. And also, some of them we're doing on biosafety level 1. Just for a bit of fun, man. Woo! 3/4 of maximum security facilities are now located in urban areas, increasing the risk of a leak. And didn't I mention? We're doing it in cities and towns where people live. But, you know, if they're going to live in cities and towns, some of which already have markets that are not as dry as they should be, they're well accommodated with these kind of risks. I imagine if you're buying a house and the estate agent says, oh, there's a market over there. Oh, nice, that's convenient. Should also tell you there's a laboratory there doing high-risk experimentation with lethal, deadly pathogens, which is going to worry you more. Oh, no, not a market. I might get A bargain! Report authors said that many countries are conducting risky research. I mean, the name itself should be cause for caution. This research is risky. Well, should we not do it then? Oh, come on, man. Where's your sense of fun? It's not Jackass. But could lead to the accidental or deliberate release of a pandemic-capable pathogen. I don't think we had to even consider deliberate release. Okay, so due to our risky experiments that we conducted only at biosafety level 1, there has, I'm sorry to say, because we were in a busy urban area, there has been a lab leak. Oh, well, never mind. Can't be helped. Accidents do happen. Accidents? We did it on purpose. Dr. Philippa Lentzos, co-director of the Centre for Science and Security Studies at King's College London, said, "There's been a global boom in pandemics? No. In construction of labs handling dangerous pathogens, but this has not been accompanied by sufficient biosafety and biosecurity oversight." That's good news. Boom! A great big explosion in experimental pathogens, but not accompanied by safety measures. Whoa, whoa, whoa. If we're going to do all of these experiments, should we at least accompany that with safety measures? What's the point? Come on, you're taking all the Funhouse Science. Professor Van der Merwe, who must be exhausted, has argued previously that many scientists were reluctant to consider the possibility that a laboratory leak started the pandemic for fear of having to curtail their own risky viral experiments. Hey, but if it did come from that lab, what about my own risky experiments? What is this? Make-A-Wish Foundation? Their love of risky experimentation should not be the North Star of our decision-making. Well, first and foremost, we will not be doing anything to curtail the risky experiments of these adorable, fun-loving scientists. Now, put that to one side, how best to handle this pandemic so that as much money as possible and as many rules as possible could be... Sorry, I've lost my focus on the fun-loving scientists for a minute. He discovered that in a separate experiment in Germany, scientists carried out similar tests as Imperial using the alpha and beta variants on hamsters, ferrets, and humanized mice. Okay, es will to the hamster. Ferret. And now my favorite of all, the humanized mice. Would you mind not doing this? Shh, it might not be that bad. And it will certainly be profitable. Ow, my heart hurts. Shut up! There is more opportunity for recombination in animal experiments and selection for more dangerous variants because they involve more cells infected for longer periods, added Professor Van der Merwe. Handling animals is also riskier in terms of transmission to the experimenter than handling cells. Yeah, the obvious risk being that you can't be bitten by a cell, but you can by a humanized mouse. And now the kicker, he added, neither of these experiments are of any help in protecting us from SARS-CoV-2. The only possible justification for all this madcap foolishness could be that it's of some use. Okay, I mean, God, it's a silly question. I can't believe I'm even asking it. This is of some use, is it, in curing SARS-CoV-2? No, not really. We just like injecting humanized mice. Now get the fuck out of my lab, you squares. Ow, I'm getting a blood clot. If it was conclusively proven the SARS-CoV-2 pandemic was the result of a laboratory leak, it would obviously strengthen the case for stricter global regulation of experiments on potentially dangerous pathogens. So that's just one more reason why the narrative is being so tightly controlled, why they're working so hard to say it was a raccoon dog, why they're working so hard to smear dissenting voices, why at the beginning, even when they were considering the lab leak theory themselves, because it's so bloody obvious, they prevented that from being widely shared and promoted the wet market idea. Doesn't it make you think there needs to be an overhaul in the entire way that science is conducted? Notably, not having science as a subset of corporate pharmaceutical interests, not having science as a tool to underwrite a new orthodoxy of regulating people, having science as a kind of mutual and magnificent principle to drive our kind forward. Yes, but in that version, do I get to inject the humanized mouse? No! It seems to me that we should regulate, prevent, massively shut down this type of experimentation unless it directly leads to advances and benefits for ordinary people, not just for profit and whatever other crazy motivations are in there that I can't even work out. But that's just what I think. Let me know what you think in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, have a look at either of these. Remember, turn on the notification bell and subscribe right now. We make this content every day and we want you to see it all. Remember, my stand-up special is available. There's a link in the description if you want to watch it. It's fantastic. I really love it. It's all about the pandemic. It's called Brandemic. Watch it if you've got time and if you fancy it. More important than any of that, though, is that you please stay free.